Independence must mean independence in our politics, in our law, in our businesses, in our culture, in our operations, in relation to the ownership of our resources, building our economy, and of course, most of all, reculturalizing ourselves as a people. That is very critical. A people that have no culture, have no identity, have no sense of pride, and this is what I believe has happened to a lot of, particularly our young people. They can be forgiven for thinking the way they do, because to a very large extent they are victims of the system that we overthrew. We now know from what has happened in the recent past that the education that we received between 1980 and very recently was a danger to ourselves and a danger to society, because this education was designed by a system that was opposed to indigenous people, that was designed to create an economy that was sustained by hiring cheap labor or skills that were very important for maintaining a foreign and white-dominated economy. This has since changed, but obviously we're living with the effects of it, because the Africans have a very weak memory of themselves. They have very little pride in themselves. This is why today we have a lot of people that are questioning the relevance of the National Day. It's unfortunate that this is what is going through their minds. In my view, the citizens of any country are the guarantors of their own sovereignty. They are the first line of defense for our national sovereignty, for the integrity of the nation, for the pride of the African people. But naturally, what we are seeing today is a reflection of, I would like to say, the kind of education that we received over many, many years when the white system was in place. And of course, yes, we take responsibility for some of its negative effects because we allowed it to perpetuate after that. I believe that until the African person starts thinking about the humiliation that we went through during the colonial era, which was on a massive scale, the marginalization that we went through, the system that disallowed us to participate in the mainstream economy, the system that obviously distorted and killed our culture. If the education system did not and does not and will not deal with those things, we're going to have a serious problem, because it will take long for people to understand why we are where we are. It's well and good when we hear people telling us that, was it Ian Smith, did very well. They maintained an economy, they gave us good cities, they gave us good roads and so on. What they really don't understand is that this economy was never designed with the inclusion of an African in mind. We provided the support to maintain a system that had nothing to do with us. Let me go further and say, if we don't change our approach and allow some of the relics from the past to live with us day in, day out, maybe very much through the education system, we're going to get to a point where I hate to do this, but obviously if you look at what's going on in South Africa today, where there are very high levels of xenophobia, which is violence on Africans by other Africans. It is the system, the particular of education that creates that. It is the lack of education that brings awareness and consciousness amongst our people to understand that the colonial system never worked in our interest. It never did anything to benefit us. And in fact, if we cling onto those values without questioning them, the possibility is that is going to take long for us to develop. I would say that the whole aim of government through the National Development Strategy is to focus on all these issues and all sectors right across the board, with emphasis on women and the young people. So we are covered in that. The dangers are obviously that the young people in particular, they're very susceptible to, shall I say, the spread of falsehoods through the social media, and we suggest obviously to a very large extent that there's nothing for them, but the reality is that on the ground there's a lot of work that's being undertaken to address those issues. Insofar as the problems of the social media, I guess it's entirely up to government and political operators to deal with that, just to make sure that at least those fabrications, those very dangerous, rather stories that almost range on being a danger to society are dealt with or neutralized very carefully, systematically, to ensure that the young people are not misfocused from the true happenings and events in their own nation. Indeed, it will be irresponsible for us to deny that a number of them are not yet there in terms of business opportunities and work, and we see the tendency of these young people drifting into a reliance on drugs and so on. But government, again, is working very hard to make sure that we close all those gaps so that we can keep our young people focused on those things that are likely to change their life for the better. Another area of interest to me is the initiative by government to reorient our education so that it is focused on redirecting the mind of the African person towards production. Yes, we know, we've all come to know what's known as education 5.0. It's making sure that you don't develop your skills, your human capital, purely just in theoretical terms, but you prepare them eventually for contributing to the national economy through setting up exciting enterprises, through obviously inventions, through innovative business thinking and so on. And we're seeing that on the rise in this country, and government is obviously doing all it can to support that effort. So where are we in terms of our national position in relation to our independence? I think what's important is to make sure that a lot of education is given to young people so they understand what has happened in the past, the humiliation that we went through, the destruction of the African memory of themselves, their sense of pride, and so that's going to be very important, because if we don't do that, we will continue to have people that give us a lot of problems.